Hello, my name is Brian Davis, Superintendent for Holland Public Schools. Monday, January 19th is set aside as a national holiday to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not sure how many times you've passed by a photo of Dr. King, like the one pictured beside me here, and reflected on the legacy and life of this great man. We're doing that in our school district. To bring forward what Dr. King means to so many members of our African American community here in Holland, we've put together a brief video library to showcase his life and what it means to them. I hope you take as much interest in their personal stories as I have. Thank you for listening.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
I have a dream. I believe that what Martin was trying to get across to America is that dreaming is being able to see a vision of a community that walked in brotherhood and in sisterhood, where African Americans, Caucasian, Hispanics, Asians can sit down and have conversations at round tables, that we look at each other as equal. Having a dream to be able to go to the school that go to school with someone that don't look like you, and not be beaten or jailed for trying to exercise your educational right. being able to have a dream, to be able to live in a community where your next door neighbor may not look like you. Just having all of the equitable parts of what humanity consists of is being able to have this dream that Martin Luther King was talking about. You know, we had people that were trying to exercise their right to vote, and according to the Constitution, it says that every person had a right to do it, but yet African Americans didn't. I believe that what he was talking about is being able to do all of the things that every Caucasian person in our society was able to do, and that was his dream. I don't see that being activated in full force, but I do see that it have brought somewhat of a change in our world. There is still racial discrimination in regards to housing, fair housing. There's still racial discrimination in regards to going in to get a loan for housing in financial institutions. There are still inequities involved in health care surrounding African American people and other minorities. There's still a lot of different injustices that we face, but we as a people, if we continue to work together in unity, as he said, we will all get to the promised land. That's being able to have a dream. Dreaming that you can live freely and exercise your constitutional right as the next person.
I can't remember a time when I didn't know who at least Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was. I remember in elementary school growing up in New York City, even way long before it was a holiday, right? I remember that being a vital part of the history lessons we learned. Who Dr. King was, and Dr. King had a dream, and singing songs in the choir from the Civil Rights Movement, and having an African American music teacher who made sure we understood those songs of freedom and where they came from. I remember being in middle school and having the very same experiences. I remember my parents talking very seriously about the Civil Rights Movement, and having lived in that, they did, and what that meant to them, and what segregation was like, what it was. I remember once, I was probably 12 years old. I was still living in New York at the time, and I'd been looking at a newspaper, and it said something about West Palm Beach. And I said, I'd like to go there sometime. And my mother said to me, she said, Jim Crow won't let you go to West Palm Beach. That was probably 1982. So I'm not even sure if West Palm Beach was still segregated at that time, but in my mother's mind, it still was. And I remember saying, who is Jim Crow, and how is Jim Crow going to keep me from going anywhere? Nobody's going to stop me from doing. I didn't even know who Jim Crow was. It was later on before I really realized that Jim Crow was a system of segregation. But when I moved to North Carolina in '84, I moved into a very segregated South. And so I moved into a school that didn't talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We only had 3 African American teachers. We still had Miss Black East High and Miss White East High, Miss Black Freshman, Miss White Freshman. We still had parts of town in the 80s. African American people could not go. I don't know what happened to them if they did, but that's what they told me, so I never went. We still had the Ku Klux Klan march down the street and put newspapers and propaganda in your yard. This is in the 80s. Yes, ma'am. In North Carolina, in Forest City, North Carolina is where I grew up, but in other parts of North Carolina in the South as well. But in the church, we always had a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration where we had singing and opportunities to memorize parts of his speech as contests and competition, and it was always a part. And then attending a historically black college, I remember being in the choir. I remember having an assembly every year in honor of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I remember the year that his birthday became a national holiday. And I remember the big celebration we had and the ways in which we honored that. And then I moved to Holland, and I went to seminary here in Holland. And I remember having to begin the academic year on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And every year I refused to attend in honor of him. And since then, I have worked and advocated strongly for what has happened this year. And that is for Holland Public Schools to acknowledge the national holiday, which is not, some say, you know, why should we celebrate Dr. King's, you know, holiday? You know, if we do that, we have to celebrate others. My first answer is because it is a national holiday. It is not an observance. It is not a cultural. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is an American hero. He is not an African-American hero, although he is African-American proudly, but he is an American hero. And the work that he did in this country to bring about justice and to reveal the kingdom of God has been for all people. We have all benefited from it, and we all should raise a flag on his birthday and observe.
Martin Luther King quietly demonstrated what it meant to have brotherly love. He believed that it was everybody's responsibility to be our brother's keeper. So, but that there should not be any ceilings for us as a people, that equality is for everybody, not just one set of individuals. I've been on trips to the King Center with family members, and we've taken a group of students there to actually visit the King Center and to stand there and look at the contributions that he's made to society. Was inspiring in the fact that we can contribute to the same things. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it in a grand spectrum. It's just one person can be touched by one individual, then it's our responsibility to be able to be our brother's keeper, to be able to uplift each other and to uplift others. Constantly keep our hands outreach to bring somebody with us, and even above us as possible, because we are family.
He was never lifted up in our home, and therefore I never lifted him up in my children's home. And so now I'm seeing the effect from that. It's not that they didn't know about him, but they knew just as much, just what we needed to know to get by. You know, okay, Martin Luther King, he marched, I Have a Dream. Him and Rosa Parks was real. She stood up by sitting down. You know, we never really discussed, because we didn't realize what we were not doing for our children by, you know, stressing that these things are important. In my household, it was never really stressed, that type of remembrance of Martin Luther King. And I really don't know why, but what I learned from him, in school. I know that my mother was proud that someone was taking a stand. I remember that, but I don't remember a lot about that. And when I moved here to Holland in 2009 is when I first heard the entire I Have a Dream speech. First time I've ever heard it.
Where were you, and what was that like?
I was at Ruth and Wayne Coleman's church, Imagine Fellowship, and that's that night I talked to them about joining the Juneteenth organization. It changed my world. I never heard it, the whole thing. I just heard that I have a dream, that you know, just a little bit of through all commercials and everything throughout my life, but never. And I'm like, oh my God, it was intoxicating. I'm sitting there like, it's beautiful. When Dr. Martin Luther King says that, you know, his dream of hand in hand and black girls and white boys and, you know, all that, you know, I don't know the speech by heart, but you know what I mean? Just playing together, you know. I, as an adult, looking back, felt what he meant. That's beautiful. When a child doesn't see color, we don't know the racism or whatever is in the world. You know, I can just, that's the only time that I can say I truly, truly felt his dream. I truly felt, but I felt it as an adult looking back, that it was on its way. it was on its way with me.
Being the great grandson of someone, or the first black man to come here and buy land, that was his dream. My great grandfather Leonard Stoudemire, he wanted to be a missionary in Africa.
What was your great grandfather's name again?
Yeah, Leonard Stoudemire.
And you said that he was the
first black man to buy property here in Holland.
In Holland?
Buy land, I should say buy land, yeah.
Wow.
On the north side.
Wow.
Because he wasn't allowed to buy, African Americans weren't allowed to buy land on the south side of the ridge.
What year was that?
Early 1900s, I would say 1927, around then is when he moved up from Illinois.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, wow, that's amazing. So when you for the words, I have a dream, could you just state that? What does that mean to you?
Just living into my great grandfather. He came up here and he had a dream of having his family in a situation where they would be prosperous. He bought land, bought enough land so other families in Chicago, when they wanted to move up, or other black families, they just bought it from him, and he bought it. He sold it to them like dirt cheap at cost. And the land he bought when he started out was a tomato cucumber field. He ended up turning them into blueberry fields. Some of the blueberry fields still exist. My mom lives. Majority of my family still lives on the land right now to this day. It's on the north side of town. So just seeing what he went through, and knowing the stories, I know the stories well. You know, that's one thing I loved about, was sitting and hearing my older folks speak about when they built the church that's out on Berry Street right now. When my great uncle, he had to stay with someone. I can't think of the lady's name, but he stayed with her while my grandfather would go back to Chicago, work. He was up here helping build the church and the house that's next door to it. And just some of the stuff that, you know, that they dealt with. They had crosses burned in their yard.
And Martin's dream connects to that, is that he triumphed.
He had a dream no matter what the outside world looked like, what he would face. It was just like, you know, this is the dream I've been given, and I'm gonna live into it. So it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter what, you know, what is said, you know, what he says, I will overcome.
The things I remember about Martin Luther King are, you know, the marches that he did, the time that he spent writing and thinking about the strategies of how to make change happen. And I want to do that same thing even in my small little classroom. You know, I teach them about respect and equality on the first day, and that my classroom, even if the school isn't a safe place for you, and my little 107 room, this is a safe place for you. We will recognize differences and we will respect them, and it is okay for you to learn and feel safe to explore and to write and read at your level and to grow from there. This is a place where you will grow, and a place where you do have equal opportunity.
And don't forget to visit the Holland Public Schools website and Facebook page, where you can find information on upcoming school events, news, sports, photos, videos, and much more.